Welcome back to the Fox Den. This is Patty Skinner, Director of Library Services, and we're discussing this semester's common read, The Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Boulley. I'm joined today by librarians from throughout our service area. They're going to introduce themselves.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Julie Cerrone from Manistee County Library. I'm the interim director, and I'm thrilled to be here.
Thanks.
I'm Robin Seymour from Mason County District Library here in Ludington and Scottville. I'm the head of adult services, and this is super exciting. My first time on the podcast. Thanks for being here.
I'm Kathleen Rash. I'm the director at our area public library, and my son is super excited that I'm here.
Yay! I could not be more thrilled to have you all here today. We're going to be discussing the first section of Firekeeper's Daughter, and it's a short part of the book, and it's just getting started. I was worried that we weren't going to have a lot, but boy, a lot happens right away in this book. So let's dig right in. One of the things that I noticed in this first section was how important the geography is. And this is a Michigan story. It's so close to home for us. So I think that was really important. Have any of you guys been to the Sioux Locks? Have you traveled there?
As a child, I was at the Locks, and it's interesting that you, rather than Sault Ste. Marie, we mentally just consider it the Sioux Locks, basically, because that's such a big part of that area with the shipping, and definitely gets into that in the book as far as that's a big part of Jonas's family as well, was for trading and shipping. It leads to that.
I thought the geography was so important, it almost was a character in the book. Like, it took on so much meaning in the book that it couldn't have taken place anywhere else. It was essentially a Michigan story and revolved around the Locks and the island, Sugar Island. So I think that was really neat, and it makes it so meaningful to us as Michiganders.
I had a great vacation with my family where we went to Promenade Falls and then to the Sioux Locks, and just one of my all-time favorite places.
I love that. So we're planning a trip with my family. I haven't been yet.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Julie? Have you been to anyone?
Yes. So I mean, who doesn't love the UP? Everyone loves the UP. But I've been there to this area several times, and I loved how indivisible she is and her family from this location. And it really made me think about, some political things, historical things that have happened. And it just, to me, it really made it more heartbreaking to think about things in a past tense. Relocation, I guess, is specifically what I'm talking about. But I loved her connection to the land. I loved it.
Yeah, that is a really important part of the story. I also thought about Donis and her different identities. Like, she has an intersectional identity, that she has Native background on her dad's side, but also her mom is from a Caucasian family that was a really prominent, wealthy family in the town, and how she likes to keep those things as separate as possible. Mm-hmm. And is she successful at that? And is that even a realistic option? Like, can you keep your identities separate indefinitely? So I spent a lot of time thinking about that and kind of Donis's level of success and maybe the inevitable colliding of worlds.
Mm-hmm. I think she tries to keep them separated, but you can't separate necessarily different pieces of who you are. You're always present one facet of yourself, but the rest is still there, and it's still affecting how you're interacting with other people and how you're viewing the situations.
I feel like it says a lot too about how other people view you, because she, I think, does it very successfully because people are looking for certain things in her, whether that's her mother's side of the family or her father. So I feel like she was very successful in that regard, just because of compartmentalization of what people are looking at her and expecting to see.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
And even the cover of the book with the butterfly and the two faces, that's a really good visual representation of Donis and those two sides of her that are one that's a lighter skin tone and the other is darker, representing her two families that are sometimes so opposed.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting, and I'm glad you brought that up. Do you think both of those represent Donis?
I do,
Okay.
because it's two sides, but they always come together to make the whole.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay. Yeah. I was thinking also of like Lily, her best friend, and like their relationship that are the two sides, possibly like the Lily and Donis, and like their really close friendship and possibility.
Yeah. And Lily is also very similar to Donis in those aspects that she also is not an enrolled member of the tribe, and it's a lot of the same facets of her identity. It's very likely part of how they became friends.
Oh yeah, they do have a lot in common, and I think overwhelmingly this book brought to my mind like the present day experience of Native Americans. Like it made it feel like something that exists currently in our American culture, that it's not just something of the past. You know, when we often see Native American representation, it's like the historic view that we get. Mm-hmm. So this, I think, overwhelmingly, this work brought to the forefront that this is a Native culture that's still being practiced today, giving that modern day context to it really opened my eyes to that.
I think for me, I was so excited about how popular this book got, because that is the facet that you tend to see. So it's really nice to see something contemporary and modern be so successful.
Yeah, so people all across the state are reading this along with us, as it's the Big Michigan Read, and here at West Shore there's going to be a lot of different classes taking this book on and reading it. So we'll be covering it throughout the semester from a lot of perspectives and different disciplines, and that's exciting for all of us to share our perspectives.
I really loved the use of the language throughout the book, and if you get a chance to listen to it, it's even more fun.
Yeah, I agree. I listened my first time. All of the Anishinaabe was so much more readily available to me. I think if I was reading my eyes, I would have maybe glossed over some of those words, and having them pronounced for me in the audiobook version made it so much more meaningful. I'm glad you brought that up. We talked a bit about Donis and Lily not being enrolled as members of the tribe, and they kind of have different reasons for that, but that was also something that I found really interesting. It was kind of a facet that I hadn't considered before, that not everybody that's a part of that culture is a member of the tribe, that there's kind of some paperwork and a process for that. Donis's instance, her father wasn't listed on her birth certificate, so that prevented her from being a member. And then Lily, who identifies as part of the tribe, still doesn't have the blood quantum. So those were two different aspects of how you would be prevented from participating in something that you really strongly identify with. And I just think that that's kind of unique to that culture, and they are protective of it, and they needed to be protective of it. But I think having this example really made me think about that in a different way.
Yeah, I think so too. It's kind of reminds me of, this is different, but with the analogy of every family that's happy is happy in the same way, and every family that's unhappy is unhappy in their own different way. So to me, it's there's so many different ways that you can not fit in. So it kind of reminds me of that. I also really loved the depiction of Lily as kind of goth. I thought that was so cool that there's subculture within another culture. I liked seeing that too, because I thought it was so unique and real. We all have our own things we're into.
So another big part of getting that tribal membership is the payments that are paid out per capita based on being enrolled in the tribe. I feel like that kind of lends itself to both the furthering of the culture, but also kind of trying to get as much out of your payments as you can, how people have kind of tried to skirt the system in that way.
I liked when her aunt said, and I'm not sure that's in the first part of the book, that her cap isn't good or bad, it's how it's used.
Mm-hmm. I think that this is kind of important to both the beginning of the story and where it ends up is Donna's choice to defer her acceptance to U of M and stay with her family. And she feels that her family really needs her at that time, and that bad things are going to happen in threes, and she's going to prevent the last one from happening. So she decides to stay home and attend Lake State, where there's a building named after her mother's side of the family. She has been there her whole life, but she's really foregoing wonderful experience going off to college. So what do you guys think? I think this is going to be really relatable to our students here at West Shore. They're kind of in that same point of their lives, making those decisions. Mm-hmm. Do you think Donna's made the right choice?
Well, I think for her, for everything she factored in, she made the choice that felt right for her. I think it is sort of a universal feeling, like when you're coming of age and you're faced with where you want to go, what you want to do based with, your family. Like I moved to Austin, Texas for, several years, and I moved back for family. You have to really prioritize what's important to you, and you kind of grow around that. So for her, she chose what was most important to her.
And she realized that for so long she had the plan to go to U of M because it was her grandmary's plan. And she says in the book, I pretended so well for so long that her plan became my plan, our plan. So eventually she realized that with all of the other things going on in the Sioux with Grandmary and the other side of her family, that she just needed to make that decision for herself and start forging her own path that wasn't just formulated for her by someone else.
Yeah, and it gives her time to think about what she really wants to do, and I think it works out, well for her in the end. But let's see.
Stay tuned. But it sounds like the plight of being a people pleaser and kind of just doing what is expected of you. And Donna wanted to be exceptional and make her family really proud and make both sides of her family proud. But I don't think she could change what was going to happen. I think there was no way to stop that third bad thing from happening. Mm-hmm. And she kind of overestimated her control over fate in that way. Like, there was nothing she could do that was beyond her power, even though she wanted really badly to be able to protect everybody and continue to be a people pleaser and make everybody comfortable.
Yeah, I feel like she was very juvenile trait. She's very young in this book. To think like, well, if I do this, then we'll be okay. So that to me was one of the sad parts of the book. Like she thought that she could prevent something that's not preventable.
So the final question is, who is Jamie Johnson? What do you guys think of this mysterious character with a scar across his face who has taken the Sioux by storm? Everybody instantly has a crush on him, wants to date him.
Jamie is someone who's also really seeking his own identity and to form that identity. He's so eager to learn a lot about the tribal culture and the language, because that's not something that he was ever immersed in growing up. So he just really wants to find his own place in the world.
Yeah, it does seem like he's striving to kind of fit in and wants to be a part of the team and be involved. So,
I feel like Jamie in this point is kind of like a blank face. We don't really know, other than he's like a hockey phenom. That's all we know.
Yeah, or maybe he was a figure skater. So we're going to have to find out more about this mysterious changes. Is there anything else that you guys have been?
I thought about Lily's funeral a lot and just how beautiful that ceremony was over the 4 days. And it just, the writing in that part is just beautiful as well. It was very heartfelt, and I just enjoyed as much as you can with that very sad circumstance, learning about those traditions. And it's just a very special part of the book.
Yeah. And that does relate to the title and Donnis's family being the firekeepers that kept the fire going for those 4 days while the person is passing into the next life. So that is definitely really important to the story. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I really like this as a coming of age story, and that it is a very representative young adult story, and that all of the characters are just finding going through that journey that we can all identify with.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Can we picture ourselves at that crossroads of like starting out in college, and there are so many new experiences and it's overwhelming and you're not really sure who you are. Like it takes a while to figure that out and maybe not be a people pleaser and start to be your own person. Yeah, something else that I was thought about a lot in this part was the introduction of Lily's ex-boyfriend and how hard it is to kind of untangle from someone that you used to love, maybe still love, but they're not the same person anymore. That's a very intense thing for even a seasoned adult to deal with, but especially, a teen to, have someone you love descend into substance abuse, and they're different and they tell you they're not, so that was a big thing for me in this because, that I'm sure we're all aware there's been, struggles within our own communities. So, even at a small idyllic area, we still are dealing with the same things.
Yeah, the story of Travis is just overwhelmingly heartbreaking because he was such a promising young man that was bright and had a bright future ahead of him. He was a great student, made everybody laugh, people gravitated towards him. And how quickly that path can change and be diverted to not only starting to take drugs, but then starting to sell drugs, starting to make it it just seemed to really kind of snowball quickly for him. Yeah. And then you can't escape. That path has trapped you. That was a really hard part of this book. Mm-hmm. And like I said, so much happens right away. Like the book in the very beginning starts with Donnis losing her best friend in this tragic way. It's kind of hard to even move past.
I just kept hoping when it starts off with Lily's murder, but I just kept hoping that wasn't what I was actually reading.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we wanted Lily and Donnis to move into the dorm together, and we could see that for them. That was, in the end, unpreventable.
Thinking about Donnis's name and how it actually means daughter, makes me think just how tied to living up to her family's expectations her entire life. In terms of deferring her admittance to UM and also just being there for her mother in almost more of a parent role to her mother than most kids have to deal with. Her name sets the stage for a lot of different things in her life.
But that's one of her main identities. Like we were talking about all the different identities that she is a daughter who needs to live up to that.
And then her status, her enrollment status in the tribe is dictated by a decision that her father made where she was born. She talks about that on several occasions. She did not have any control over that ended up affecting so much of her life. It's a decision that was made for her.
isn't that much of childhood. Like your decisions are kind of made for you.
Yeah.
And you have to really break out on your own to start making those choices yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, in light of those decisions that are made for you, you have to choose your own path and decide how you're going to then respond to that decision.
That's just so hard. It's just not easy.
Nailed that one. So we have a lot of sympathy for Donna's in this perspective. We've lived through this, and I feel like we were right there. That is the thing about this book, is that it is so powerfully written, and I felt like I could identify with Donna's so much, and I just felt like wrapped into this story, like I was there with her. It was so powerful right from this first.
Yeah, as far as like writing is concerned, I read enough to know what I like. And I really liked that out of the gate, this was interesting and things were happening and you knew something ominous was coming. And was it Angeline? Angeline did a great job, I think, with pacing the beginning, because setting all this up from a writer's perspective is difficult. So she packed a lot in a way that still captivated like a high level of interest, it takes serious talent as a writer.
It's beautiful. And I'm going to be honest, I read this book last summer, and I started breaking up the sections of this podcast, and I was like, oh, this first part, it might be kind of a slow start to talk about. And boy, was I not remembering that well, because it starts out so fast paced, and it keeps the pace the whole book. You will just be turning the pages and wanting to find out what is happening next to Donna's, because she felt so real to us.
And then there's not a sequel, but a related book with her nieces or her cousins.
Yes.
What?
It just came out this summer, and I'm not allowing myself to read it.
What is it called? Do I know?
Warrior Girl on Earth. Okay, I loved it.
I'm going to add it to my Goodreads so that I can remember to get it from the library.
Please do. I'm going to wait to read it until I finish discussing this book, because I don't want to get myself mixed up, but I can't wait.
I wish I had resolve, because I'm not going to wait. It's not going to happen.
Okay, guys, this has been such a great discussion.
Thank you for having us. This was wonderful.
Thank you.
So exciting. I appreciate all of your time being here with me today. This has been super exciting to get to record this together and share our joy of reading as librarians. And we hope you all enjoy this book just as much. And so that's all for today. I'm Patty Skinner.
Julie Cerrone.
Robin Seymour.
Kathleen Rash.
Thanks for listening.